Nanotechnology is defined as technology that deals with dimensions of 1 nanometer to 100 nanometers, because then it functions on the nanoscale, whereas anything larger would be the microscale. So nanotechnology has some really awesome applications. A great example is using it to coat objects. So as you can see, there's a spray developed, and you can spray it on just about anything, and it's hydrophobic, which means it repels water. So you can see it there on a cinder block. This is an example of it on like screws. So you can imagine the applications that this would have, because it pretty much prevents any objects, such as screws, from rusting. And even on things like work gloves, it can make them completely waterproof, so you can work underwater without having to have fancy rubber gloves. You can see the amount of water taken off is amazing. So at the heart of all this nanotechnology are these things called carbon nanotubes. And there's single-walled carbon nanotubes, which are cheaper to make, but are also weaker, versus multi-walled nanotubes, which is a series of nanotubes inside of each other, which are more expensive, but also work better. So here you can see a short video explaining something called Bucky paper, which I find really interesting. It's pretty much a paper which is made up of carbon nanotubes that are 200 times stronger than steel and weigh 1/6 as much as it. So carbon nanotubes can be arranged in various ways to enhance specific properties, such as electromagnetic interference that sends back waves, or strength, like tensile strength that makes them stronger when you try and pull them. Even conductivity, they can conduct electricity very well. Also, heat dissipation, you can use them for like fireproof clothing and things like that. Like, the sky's really the limit with these carbon nanotubes. Like, they're much stronger than any materials we have now. So you can see we can make windmills that are far, far stronger and bigger and more efficient than what we have right now. And with that, we can power much more for much less. And even airplanes can be improved by Bucky paper. Right now we use metal airplanes, which, as you can see, are expensive and not very fuel efficient, because they require so much fuel. And so they have poor fuel economy. Some of the more fancy planes are carbon fiber composite planes, which still need a metal mesh, which makes them still pretty heavy, but obviously not as heavy as metal planes. But these also have a corrosion issue. And now, at the very top, you can see there are planes that are made out of Bucky paper that are light and fuel efficient, and they actually protect from lightning strikes as well, because they don't conduct electricity as well as metal does. They also allow for data transfer through the material, unlike metal. So you could be sending emails, which would make plane rides much better. Also, Bucky paper cars are really cool. They have also used them in the fuel cells that cars use, both regular cars and electric vehicles. So you can see the trip length in miles, and then right now the electric car, after 100 miles, you need to recharge it. The current fuel cells that most cars have right now are pretty good. You can see they're going up to 130 so far, but the fuel cells that have right now, a big problem with them is they're very expensive because they use lots of platinum. But Bucky paper fuel cells use about 1/4 of the amount of platinum and are much more efficient, because they actually don't need batteries as well, because they can double as batteries. And you can see the surface of the car. You can actually store energy within the surface of the car. And Bucky paper can also be used to store data. As you can see here, the other cars are starting to back off now, but the Bucky paper one just keeps going. And another great application of nanotechnology is in nanomedicine, because people can build little tiny microscopic robots that can get injected into your bloodstream and do like get rid of blood clots or viruses. Also, nanoelectronics is really awesome because right now the electronics that we have are, for example, RAM. RAM's actually a really good example because nanotechnology is starting to be applied. Right now, the RAM sticks that you have in your computer that you're looking at right now, they use hundreds of millions of transistors to store data. So transistors can either be used as amplifiers, like in hearing aids, where they take a sound coming in and amplify it through a transistor and send a higher frequency wave into your ear. But the transistor application that you use in nanoelectronics is actually they use them as switches, which means they can either have two states. They can either be a 1 or a 0, and they use hundreds of millions of these 1s and 0s to store data, which is a pretty archaic system. So they've started to use nanoelectronics to design much smaller chips that can accomplish the same task and be far more efficient in doing so. And you can see this is an example of a piece from one that can fit on your finger. Now, another interesting thing about nanotechnology, and specifically nanoelectronics, is this concept of gray goo. So pretty much what gray goo is, it's a dystopian scenario in which nanobots without replication limiting code, which means code that limits them from just multiplying without stopping. They just keep multiplying and multiplying, and they pretty much just destroy all the living life on the planet because they need it for fuel to power their replication. And so they just keep on expanding and replicating until like the Earth kind of just dies. Would not be good. So remember, only you can prevent gray goo. And thank you. That was nanotechnology.